at these prices, knowing I'm going to lose money. I have to reschedule every 3 or 6 months. And I don't think we've thought that through. Now, last time when we were here, 1980, 82, we came up with the derivatives market. What have we done this time? We've dislocated it. We've dislocated the solution at exactly the time we need it. So we never answered the questions. Is there an easy solution? And it's not about who's running Europe, it's who's running the global economy. You know, what's the role of the IMF? What's the role of the World Bank? What's the role of the United Nations? I was in Malaysia on Sunday discussing this. I was in Mauritius the week before. 60% of their exports are to Europe. You know, it's not a European problem. It's a global problem. And therefore, everything we try and solve in here can't quite work. So the European debt crisis and the American debt crisis and the difficulty of someone like Germany borrowing more than it can raise. But the German figures are awful, really, for what's supposed to be the strongest. Germany's not eligible to be a member of the EU, of Europe. So we're still expecting unrest in Europe. We're expecting rioting in the streets. I predicted it before, and I got lambasted a bit like you did for saying the comments that I said 3 weeks before it happened. It's going to happen again. There'll be rioting in Europe. Some governments will fall. Some militaries will take over. It's the point of the cycle. When you leave the cycle, you get a level of uncertainty, which is really, really unpleasant. And you know, I'm sorry that I can't be a harbinger of great news, but the political will is not there to solve this crisis.
Good news.
Does anyone have anything to add?
After that, they'll be all right.
Okay. Just something about transferring money from rich to poor areas. So I'm from Germany, and we have this problem of unionization between East and West. And the eastern part, even though we were on the same Deutsche Mark and we were now on the same currency, they had always lower salaries, and everything was lower there. And everything gets still, after 20 years, kind of still differently rated. And the problem is, if you just transfer money, you're not going to solve the problem, because you need to kind of transfer knowledge. Even in Germany, you don't have language barriers, and you don't have cultural barriers, not that many. Even there, it didn't really work. So now companies start to kind of build factories in East Germany, which kind of create local money, rather than producing everything in Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg and just transfer the money. So now they start building, for instance, BMW and Porsche, they start to build factories in East Germany. And you also see this in Poland. Poland was one of the countries which had remarkable growth, even though all the countries around were kind of declining. But why is this? Because every country, I mean, Fiat, for instance, and a lot of German companies, if you drive on the speedway from Germany to Poland, you see so many factories. But that's how they grow, because they are producing things and not just talking. So if you want to figure out kind of Greece, for instance, then you need to transfer knowledge. You need to kind of not send Germans there building factories and run them. You need to kind of make them kind of produce something. You need to kind of open plants there and do something. But this is kind of things that where now the markets come into place. Because what happens, for instance, in East Germany, when after the reunification, there were a lot of kind of state-owned socialistic companies, and even they were producing maybe not efficient whatever, but a lot of these companies were bought off by Western companies, by West German companies, and then just to shut down concurrent factories. And then you saw after 10 years, they started reopening kind of, or reintroducing the same products into the market. So it's also a bit kind of, I think, it might be that the markets are not flexible enough, for instance, to do this step, to kind of go out and not just send money somewhere and let them do something, but really
I think you make a really good point.
go there.
Solution to this as well. There's essentially a corporate solution in some ways, or corporates have their price to pay to kind of make that investment, to get in there and to do what they can.
But they're not going to do that in an environment of political and economic uncertainty, and I think this is why there has to be, bottom line is, we need some leadership from Europe.
But the this is another thing that I want to say. So you said, you know, you want to have this parliament. So you want to have one person making decision, but who should this person be? How are you sure that this person at the top makes the right decision? So when you got asked what should we do, you didn't have an answer. How should anyone else have an answer? And this is, you know, of course you need to have a bigger parliament, but it doesn't really matter if you have a parliament coming from Germany with 80 million people kind of going to the top, or if you have one whole Europe and going to the top, and you have a kind of, you know, kind of financial competitors that come with proper kind of, how do you say this, you know, if you write to sign some documents and just send them off in each country, then these cards make a decision, and then you have the decision. I mean, you don't need to have a leadership by country, you just need to have the structure.
But there needs to be some leadership in Europe to deal with this crisis, otherwise we are just going to go round and round circles. This is not going to be good. So, can we just have one more question, and then I think we need to call it a day.
I want to point out that you don't need political coordination to have a single currency, because 150 years ago everybody was on the same currency, which was gold.
Yeah.
Until
Are there any more questions? We've got one more question. One little more.
It's just to say that my last question was a loaded question, because I think it's not to decry markets. It's rather to say that I think we need to think more multidimensionally about not just one-dimensionally the fiscal accountability of a pension fund. So, for example, I did some work with pension funds in the Netherlands, and they really wanted to be investing in the long-term economy of the nation, because they did some sums to say if we invest in the short term for our pensioners, then over the long term, the whole economy is going to decline.
Yes.
So it's, I think what I was really kind of fun was to see that the question of values-based accountability, or accountability which is multidimensional, not only fiscally. And I think this whole situation is we've really experimented with the idea that optimizing for one-dimensional financial result is insufficient to governing a complex system. And this human being is a complex system. Biology doesn't do it that way. It doesn't just take one variable. Engineers know that you have multi-variable control systems. So it's more about that. I think that would be real. What would be a values-based governance mechanism that people with this kind of brain power could start to think about? Comment on questions, I apologize.
I think that's it. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just to put a note on that, here there's actually 5 values in the system. You've got the economics, which is what we're talking about here. You've got the human values of the skills, of course, and then you've got the infrastructure, you've got the national, the natural value, wealth, yes, and efficient acquiring, I'm sure. And then you've got the did I mention the social, the interaction, summation of the interaction between these. So I guess there's another book by the actually co-architect of the Euro, Bernard Lietaer, wrote a book on human wealth, which was just recently promoted in the States, talking about the aspects of the perhaps having more economics based around the natural commodities coming out of countries.
I agree with you. I think the European leaders actually have a real opportunity right now to change the way that we do things. The danger is that without political leadership, without political will, we will just carry on pushing the same situation. I really hate the phrase "kicking the can down the road." I'm desperately trying to think of something else. But unfortunately, I think without someone standing up and taking ownership and directing this, we will end up with more of the same.
Outsourcing some new leaders.
We need new leaders sometimes.
Sorry.
One more question.
Yeah. Maybe like we were talking about a lot about finding the right system. Maybe the question isn't finding the right system, because we tried hard for a few years now, and we kind of just kicking the can down the road. Maybe we just have to fail at some point, and that like certain parts in the economy fail and then restart, because the only thing we're doing since World War II basically is just fixing it further, and not appreciating that we failed in one area, shut it down and restart.
You'll be a brave politician.
You'll be an elected politician.
Okay. Can I just give these guys a fantastic Can I also give a fantastic thank you to some of these wonderful questions and comments that you've all posed. This has been a very, very exciting evening. I just want to remind you, in case we are still here in a couple of months, you can find our next event on uclfinds.com if you'd like to join us again. We are now going to let you go to our networking event, which is if you exit the alleyway here and turn left, go under the bridge, there's a place called the Print Cafe, and there's some drinks and some potato chips or something like that. So thank you all very much for coming tonight, and have a good summer.